Hi everyone, Lisa here with Mini Me in Tennessee, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing the dark side of gastric bypass. First of all, disclaimer, I am not a medical expert. This is my opinions and my interpretation of my research. So take that with a grain of salt. Please be sure to do your own research, but this is my version of the dark side of gastric bypass. Your opinion may differ, and that's perfectly fine. We need differences of opinions, right? The first thing I wanted to talk about in regards to the dark side of gastric bypass, and I have talked about this before in dedicated videos, and that's dumping syndrome. Dumping syndrome is a side effect of gastric bypass. Dumping syndrome comes from the rapid release of food, water, into our intestinal system, and that causes a terrible reaction. It causes you to feel lightheaded. It causes your heart to race. It causes you to feel like you're going to pass out sometimes. Some people it causes nausea and vomiting. Some people it causes diarrhea. For me personally, I feel lightheaded. I feel like I need to go lay down. I feel hot, sweaty, and a little bit nauseous. I've never thrown up during a dumping syndrome episode, and I've never had diarrhea from it, but it feels terrible. It's not something that you want to experience. Now, the further out I got, the less and less I experienced that, and that could be my own fault because I've been making bad choices, and I'm wondering if my system has become sort of immune because I have been introducing more simple carbs into my system, which I shouldn't be doing. And I'm wondering if I go back to eating the way I'm supposed to be eating, if that will come back. I don't know, something I'll have to try. But that said, there are actually two different types of dumping syndrome, and I don't know that I've ever talked about that. First, you have the early phase, and that's probably going to hit you within 30 minutes to an hour of eating. Mine usually hit me before that. I would say 10 to 30 minutes for me personally. All of us are different, and it's going to affect us different, and we're going to have different symptoms. There's also a late phase, and I feel like that's more of what I'm experiencing now. In the beginning, I thought it was hypoglycemia because it has very similar symptoms. And when I was talking to my doctor about it, I was talking to my family doctor about it. But I'm wondering if I had talked to my bariatric doctor, if he would have not had said it was late phase dumping syndrome. Going back and looking at it now, I do believe that's what I have been experiencing instead of hypoglycemia. Although the symptoms are very similar. The difference between early and late is just like it sounds. In early dumping, you're going to experience it early after you've eaten. In late, you're going to experience it later. You might experience it 1 to 3 hours later. For late phase dumping syndrome, it sort of triggers a little bit differently. Instead of the fast release of food, water into your intestine, it actually has to do with your blood sugar levels, a lot like hypoglycemia. Your symptoms are going to be a little bit different. For me personally, it's a feeling of heaviness, like someone pushing on my shoulders, like just a heaviness. It's hard to explain it. And then I feel really dizzy, and my heart is going to race. I'm going to break out in a sweat, and I am going to need to sit down really quickly or I'm going to fall down. It's that kind of feeling. And I feel like the only thing that makes it feel better other than waiting it out or laying down is food. For some reason, when I experience late phase dumping, I get hungry and I want to eat, and that seems to make it go away. But I'm sure that's because I've had a huge drop in my blood sugar, and then I've eaten and it sort of came back up to normal. And a lot of that, I think, is here again because I'm eating too much simple carbohydrates, sugar. And I think that's what's causing it. So that's a new one for you guys. Yeah, I haven't talked about that before. But the bright side of dumping syndrome is that it can be controlled. If you are eating right, you probably won't experience any. And here again, there are some other things that can trigger it besides just sugar. I've heard of people saying they've experienced stuff after eating MSG and those kinds of things. So be aware of that as well. Another side effect that I had from my gastric bypass was gallstones. About, I think, a month 11 post-op is when I got diagnosed with gallstones. And I believe that's something that's fairly common in the weight loss surgery world. It's something that can happen after a rapid weight loss. And here again, it's also a side effect of obesity. So I think it was in my future anyway. And granted, my grandmother and my mother both had their gallbladders out at some point in their life. It was in my cards for sure, but with the weight loss surgery, I did develop gallstones, and that is something that's painful. It is diagnosed through ultrasound. For me, I had to have it removed surgically. I did take the medication right after surgery that's supposed to keep you from developing gallstones, and for the life of me right now, I cannot remember what it's called. I did take that, just so you know, because I probably would have gotten that question. Yes, I did take that, and I still got that. I guess it all depends on how many you have. The more you have, the more severe the pain's going to be, what your pain tolerance is. And some people have attacks, gallbladder attacks, and that's what I was having, and pretty much occurred every time I ate. So I was losing weight at that point too because of that, because I wasn't really eating a whole lot. And yeah, so that's definitely something to consider. Another side effect that I developed through gastric bypass surgery was I got a gastric ulcer. Now this is not something that is as common as, say, gallstones, but it is a possibility, and I'm sure your surgeon will talk to you about that. And usually it is developed through either smoking or taking NSAIDs. That is some of the reasons why you won't get approved if you're a smoker, and they tell you to never take NSAIDs again after gastric bypass surgery. But I had not done either one of those things. And we kind of think mine was stress related because I wasn't really taking care of myself. I had a lot going on in my life. It was 2017 when all of this came about. It was a terrible year for me. I had 2 family members pass away unexpectedly. One of them was my grandmother. She was really, really up there, top of the list, and it really hurt me when I lost her. I lost a nephew at the age of 29. That really hurt me. It was a bad year. I was having a lot of mental health issues. My husband had some issues going on. I was worried about him. Lot going on with me at that time. And I was having the gallstone and the ulcer at the same time. So that was a lot to deal with. It's painful. A gastric ulcer is painful. And for those of us who gastric bypass, it typically occurs at the anastomosis. Did I say that right? That's where everything is sort of sewn together. When they reroute everything, one of the little seams, I developed an ulcer there. And that was not fun. That's how it was diagnosed, through an endoscopy. And what that is they run a scope down your throat. Don't freak out. It's no big deal. They put you in a twilight sleep. You do nothing, and it's super fast. You're in and out. It's no big deal. So don't let that freak you out. That was the easiest part of having the ulcer. It's so painful, guys. It was so painful to me. A lot of times it would mask the pain of the gallstone. When the symptoms first started, I wasn't sure if I had, which one I had. Did I have ulcer? Did I have gallstones? And then after my testing, it turns out I had both. So there you go. But some of the symptoms are very similar, and the location is sort of similar. For the ulcer, it was right here at the top of my stomach. I'd have burning and pain. And then with the gallstones, it was right here into my rib cage. So very close together. So it was kind of hard to know until I had the actual test done. But yes, that was unpleasant. To fix it, you take medications. Let's talk about NSAIDs. I already mentioned that you can't take NSAIDs after gastric bypass. I'm not sure about the other surgeries, but for sure, I can tell you gastric bypass is a no-no. And the ulcer is one of the reasons why. NSAIDs, if you don't know, it's basically a pain reliever like you would get in an aspirin. So you can't take anything over the counter that has any aspirin in it. No aspirin, such as Bayer, no Aleve, no Motrin. Basically, the only pain reliever you can take is Tylenol. So be careful when you're buying your over-the-counter cold medicines as well, because a lot of times they will have aspirin in them if they are a fever reducer or a pain reliever. So be very careful. If you're not sure, ask the pharmacist or do some research online. I actually went in, the first time I got sick, I did some research and I found all of the things that I should be taking as a gastric bypass patient for colds and sore throats and all those things that we usually get year after year after year. And I found out what was going to be safe for me, and that's what I buy every single time. And that's what I keep in my medicine cabinet. So if you would like to know more about that, let me know in the comments below. Perhaps I'll put a video together on OTCs for you guys, because that's something I've never done either. Before I mentioned malabsorption because of gastric bypass, because our intestines are rerouted, the bright side of that is that we don't absorb as many calories and fats and carbs from the foods we're eating. That's the whole reasoning behind the rerouting of the intestines. And because of that, as I've already mentioned, there are pros to that. It helps you with your weight loss and helps you keep the weight off a little bit more than you might get with another surgery. The cons to that is you malabsorb vitamins as well. So you're not getting as much nutrition from the food you're eating. So you will have to take vitamins. And I think most weight loss surgery patients have to take vitamins anyway. For gastric bypass, we typically have to double up on stuff. And then once you start doubling up on your vitamins and having your blood tested throughout your journey, then you'll learn what you might become more deficient in. For me, for example, I get deficient in iron and zinc and vitamin D. So I have to keep an eye on those levels, and I have to take extra supplements to make sure that I don't get deficient in those, especially in the beginning. The first year was my sort of trial and error period of trying to figure out what I was going to be deficient in and how my body was going to malabsorb things. And so I had to take like double iron, double vitamin D, and double zinc, and then I had to take copper because zinc depletes your copper. And there's so much to it. And in the beginning, your blood work, you will have to probably have like every 3 to 6 months in the beginning instead of just once a year like I do now, to make sure that your vitamin levels are where they need to be. As you get further along post-op, you're able to eat more food, therefore you're getting more nutrients from your food, and so you don't have to take as many, but you still probably need to double up on those vitamins every single day. That being said, a lot of people don't want to take all those vitamins, struggle with taking vitamins like I do with the swallowing of them, struggling to remember, but there are hacks out there for you. I have an organizer in my description box below. I actually have two. I just got another one I'm trying out, I'm really liking. So I'll link both of those for you so you can check them out, and I'm going to talk about that organizer a little bit later in another video. But vitamin organizers are a big help to you in helping you remember to take your vitamins. And here again, you will have to take more than normal people do. Non-weight loss surgery patients, I guess I should say, not normal. I always say normal. You guys know what I mean, right? But that is sort of a con to gastric bypass. You have to take more vitamins. Okay guys, here's something I want to touch on briefly. This was a question that I got recently, and it is in regards to dental and your teeth and all of that after weight loss surgery. And as far as gastric bypass goes, I don't know anybody, I personally do not know of anybody that's had any dental issues since surgery. I have not had any dental issues since my surgery, and I am going on 4 years post-op. I do take care of my teeth. I go get my checkups and my cleanings and my x-rays every 6 months. I have since I became an adult and had insurance, so I do take care of my teeth. What little research I've done on dental issues after gastric bypass led me back to VSG. And the reason it led me back to VSG is because they were saying that typically the reason people have dental issues after weight loss surgery is because of acid reflux. Because acid reflux can come up, and it's acid, so it's going to do damage to anything that's in its path, including your teeth. In regards to gastric bypass, I couldn't find anything on it except for a possibility if you let your vitamin deficiency take hold of your teeth. So as long as you are taking your vitamins and taking care of your teeth like any other person would, then you should be fine, in my personal opinion. But if you are gastric bypass and you have had issues with your teeth, dental issues since surgery, and your research and your dentist has determined that it was due to your surgery, not due to you not taking care of your teeth like you should, let us know in the comments below about that. That way those that are curious will have more information other than just my opinions, because I haven't had any issues. Let's talk about nausea a minute. Nausea is something I experienced newly post-op, like the very first couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of being post-op. I mean, I think that's probably to be expected a little bit. Not everybody experiences it, but I think a lot of people do. I mean, think about it. Surgeon went in there, cut on your stomach, stapled your stomach, been in there messing around with stuff. I mean, chances are you might develop some nausea over that. And they typically give you a transderm scope to have behind your ear. So when you come out of surgery, you're already sort of medicated for that. They'll give you some anti-nausea medication to take home with you. I think that's pretty typical. And then you deal with it the best you can the first 2 or 3 weeks. I know for me personally, I didn't really have any issues with nausea a lot, except when I try to take my vitamins. That's when I would have issues. But I have heard some horror stories, and it's not just gastric bypass, it's weight loss surgery in general, from some of my followers that have had to deal with nausea for a lot longer than I did. And if that was the case for you, drop it in the comments below so that the other viewers can see more about that, since it's not something I really had to deal with as much as a lot of my other followers did. But just know that that's a possibility. And if you're someone who experienced that, how long did you experience it? Was it 2 months, 3 months? Was it a year? How long did you have to deal with that? And what did you do for it? What took care of that for you? Was there medication that took care of it for you? Or did they not work? Let us know all the details below for those of us who need to know that. Another issue that a lot of people have is constipation. This was something that I already had struggled with before surgery. And it's all because I just don't drink enough water, people. I just don't. But it really hasn't been that big of an issue for me because I take a stool softener twice per week. That's now twice per week. In the beginning, I took it, I think, every other day. And then I was able to wean myself down to twice a week. I can probably do pretty good without it, but I feel better if I take the stool softener, because when I take the stool softener a couple times a week, I'm more regular. It's almost like clockwork. Constipation can be an issue. There are things out there to help you with that too. Let us know in the comments below if you've had any major issues with that. But for me personally, I was able to remedy my issues just with a couple of weekly stool softeners. Another thing that I wanted to sort of talk about a little bit that I have not had, but is a possibility that I've heard about, is internal hernias after weight loss surgery. And I think it's more prone for those who actually had an open surgery than those of us who had laparoscopic surgery. And basically, an internal hernia is when something moves into something else that's not supposed to. Like I had a hiatal hernia, so I guess there's sort of like a opening that my diaphragm was moving up into my esophagus and causing to push acid reflux up, and that was fixed when I had my gastric bypass. So I would say it's the same concept with an internal hernia, but it's going to be in your digestive system somewhere. So like a bowel probably moving, because your bowels move internally, and so maybe up into an intestine or something like that. But that is a possibility. My bariatric surgeon actually did my gallbladder removal because he always said to me, if that ever happens, I want to do that. And the reason why he wanted to do it was because he wanted to go in there and check me out, make sure everything was still okay in there from the surgery he had done before. Sort of a chance to get a double look inside there after some healing had went on. And it gave him an opportunity to check for an internal hernia. And I was good. I've not had any issues with that. think at this point I probably will. I think it usually occurs like within the first 3 years or so. If that's happened to you after that point, be sure to let us know. I could be wrong about that. Just a quick read I did on this. My understanding is that it can be very serious and can be very painful. I haven't heard of anybody that I follow here on YouTube of having that issue. And I have followed many people over the years. But if you are someone that had that issue, please let us know about it in the comments below. And when you're letting us know about these things, please be sure to include what type of surgery you had. Because I'm curious to see if there's a common thread with a certain type of surgery. Or if you had open surgery instead of laparoscopic, please be sure to let us know that. But that is something that can occur. Another piece of the dark side. Alright guys, that's everything that I had to share in today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you are not already subscribed to my channel, please be sure to do so before you head out. I would love to have you join the family here at Mini Me in Tennessee. And I will see you guys in the next one.